Hello, I want to welcome everyone to our discussion today on how to minimize your total cost of ownership for high performance workloads in Azure VMware solutions. Thank you everyone for joining us today. We got a bunch of great insights and an amazing topic to go through, but without further ado, let's get into it. My name is Scott Sinclair. I'm the practice director with the Enterprise Strategy Group. We're an IT analyst firm. For those of you who may not be familiar with us, we have a heavy focus on research and strategy within the IT area. I plan to share some of my research and the insights that we have from the Enterprise Strategy Group with you. But before we get to that, I want to introduce our esteemed speakers. We have Cam Eshke from Lightbits and Abel Gordon as well. Cam and Abel, real quick, before we get into the conversation, if you guys could maybe introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your role at Lightbits.
Sure. Thank you, Scott. So Cam Eshke, I lead the business team for Lightbits as Chief Strategy Officer and a co-founder, based in our office in California. I've been in the industry for many years, startups and big companies in compute, storage, and networking. So happy to be here with you, Scott. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Abel, over to you.
Thank you, Scott. So I'm Abel Gordon, Chief System Architect, working at Lightbits from its inception, also based in our California office. I am a technical person. I love everything related to system, virtual systems, performance, how to scale. And that's where I am here to talk with you about how we can build a very efficient, scalable, cost-effective solution.
Well, I'm super excited about this topic, mainly because as we've looked at cloud adoption in our research, there continues to be a hyper focus on how do we reduce costs. But before we get into the meat of the conversation, I want to just a couple housekeeping things for the audience. There's a questions tab that you guys or individuals can submit questions if something comes up during the conversation. We've allocated time at the end of this talk to get to your questions, so please be patient if we don't get to it through the flow of the conversation. But yes, please submit questions as we get into it. And Cam and Abel, I really want to get into how we actually solve all these challenges. But first, I thought I might leverage some of our research to set the stage of what we're seeing at the Enterprise Strategy Group on some of the big cloud-related challenges that organizations are facing today. The first thing that we have is, and I think it's a good way to set the stage, is look, I think we all agree the public cloud offers transformational business benefits. What you see in the research is 88% of organizations are saying, look, multi-cloud, not just public cloud, but multi-cloud is a part of their strategic their strategic operations. It delivers strategic benefits to everything they do. Now, if we think about why people leverage the public cloud, again, if you're watching this, you're probably like, well, of course people leverage the public cloud, but it's good to level set on the why to really get a sense of, okay, where are the big challenges? We leverage the public cloud as a business because we want to move faster, because 52% of organizations are saying, look, we need that accelerated time to value. We need to get digital initiatives done more quickly so we can get to that revenue opportunity faster. We need access to better innovation and better functionality. That's not just from an infrastructure side, that's getting to the public cloud tools and capabilities that can better enable developers and those builders that we often hear about. And then lastly, it's about improved risk management. Now, part of that is because of the established practices of the public cloud and their capabilities, but also part of that is about freeing up operational personnel or internal personnel so they can focus on other business tasks to overall reduce the risk on your environment, because now you've freed up more people to focus on this. This gives a sense of, okay, why do people approach the cloud? But now let's shift gears a little bit and think about, okay, what problems start to emerge? Well, the first thing that we see in our research is 82%. So nearly everyone is struggling to properly size workloads when they deploy it in the cloud. There's a paradigm shift when you move from an on-premises environment to a public cloud environment in order to ensure that your workload gets the right experience, especially when it comes to security, performance, and availability. Those tend to be three big things. And also, if it doesn't get that, it tends to be harder to diagnose in the cloud. And also, we see 77% of organizations say, look, our overall operations, our planning is hindered by this lack of visibility into the spending of public cloud services. So if we unpack that a little bit, we all talk about, cloud costs, but part of cloud costs is not just the price of the cloud services itself, it's the complexity of understanding not just what you're paying for in the cloud, but also understanding how to optimize once it's in the cloud, because it's difficult to diagnose. Did I over provision for my workload? Did I over provision more performance or capacity than I need? Did I under provision? How do I optimize? And we see that emerge as organizations start to think about their overall application landscape or their application environment and what constitutes a candidate to move to the cloud. So we also see in our research that for the average organization, they identify about 25% of their workloads as these are not candidates to move to the cloud. I candidly believe that they're probably a little bullish on the other 75%, given where things are today, but let's just focus on that 25% straight off. So when we look at, okay, well, why? And we followed up with these organizations and said, okay, why is a workload not a candidate to move to the cloud? You see the top 5 rationale there. And I think what was really shocking to me is we hear security, we hear, I want better control. We hear about the locality of data and the importance of data sovereignty or different compliance regulations as things that tend to keep workloads on premises. But beating all of those, outperforming was, look, performance, or for many of these organizations, they believe they can achieve performance more cost effectively on premises. Now, that builds us right in this conversation, Cam and Abel, that I want to have with you guys, because if we think about it, one of the things that I'm really fascinated about what Lightbits is doing is about reducing the cost of getting that performance in the cloud and addressing that main big issue, especially for VMware. As we think about workloads, VMware and virtual machines plays a huge role in that. So Cam, why don't I start off by firing this at you, is what specific cloud challenges are organizations running into with VMware workloads that you're seeing among your customers?
Thank you, Scott. That was a great introduction. And you're absolutely right. I mean, what we're hearing from customers is very much consistent with what you just said, that customers want to move to the cloud because of the efficiencies, agility, and other benefits that it provides. But for workloads that are performance intensive, they're having a hard time making that transition. And let me first say, for those who don't know who Lightbits is, we provide the most cost-efficient cloud data storage for performance-intensive workloads. That's basically Lightbits in a nutshell. We have a software-defined storage product that runs on any cloud, on-prem, as well as Azure and AWS. And for performance-intensive workloads, we have the most cost-efficient offering. And we'll talk about that today. So in terms of the question you asked, let me just start with this slide. I think this will be helpful. There's been a lot of workloads that have already moved to the cloud over the last several years. And the question is, well, what problem are we solving? We are focused directly on those performance-intensive, especially latency-sensitive workloads that are having a hard time moving to the cloud because the offerings for storage that are available today, either native offerings or other offerings on the cloud, have storage performance bottlenecks, or they have scalability limitations that limits what the customer can do over time as their workloads require more and more storage. Again, the focus is on storage-intensive and latency-sensitive workloads. Even if the customers, even if these accounts can move their workloads to the public cloud, they end up paying a lot for high-performance storage because they have to go with the high-performance storage tier. And in those cases, they're paying not just for capacity, but they're also paying for IOPS, they're paying for data services, and it becomes cost prohibitive. So what ends up happening is they just stay on-prem. And that's exactly where we're focused, is in moving those workloads that are performance sensitive, latency sensitive, to the public cloud. And specifically today, we want to talk about Azure VMware solution. We have customers on-prem that are using Lightbits in Kubernetes environment and VMware environment. And those VMware workloads, when they want to move to Azure VMware solution, are looking for a block storage offering that can address their performance requirements. And that's exactly where we're focused. So let me just give you a quick summary of this, and I'll be happy to continue with the Q&A with you, Scott. Our solution for Azure VMware solution is fully certified by VMware, integrated with AVS, and provides external storage for AVS clusters, Azure VMware solution clusters, that addresses the performance and storage intensive scalability that these workloads require. So what does that mean? First of all, our solution is running on Azure VMs. It's consumable through the marketplace and presented as a fully managed service for those customers who want Lightbits to operate the storage cluster. So it allows for customers to be able to scale their storage completely independently from their compute. So if you have a storage intensive workload and you know that you need to be able to scale your storage, you wanted the ability to do that without having to add expensive AVS nodes and just scale your storage. And that was one of the ways that we help reduce the cost. Second, we are focused on performance intensive workloads and latency sensitive workloads, such as databases and transactional workloads like Oracle, SQL Server, MySQL, PostgreSQL, where you need sub-millisecond latency, consistent latency, and that has a significant impact on the way those transactions can be completed. This solution, as I said earlier, is fully certified by VMware and is the only NVMe over TCP cloud solution that is certified by VMware on the public cloud. So in summary, what we provide is scalable high performance, scalable up to millions of IOPS, ability to scale your storage independently from compute, and achieve sub-millisecond consistency in the latency. And that's something that no other offering on for Azure VMware solution can support today.
Hey, Cam, real quick before you get off this slide, comment and a question. Comment that I'd love, which I think is really important to the audience, particularly for database solutions running on VMware, is the value of your ability to scale storage independently from compute and the impact that has on database licenses. And I think that's something that really everyone in our audience needs to be hyper focused on, is the architecture of storage scalability matters, particularly around cost. So I wanted to draw focus on that. But I did have a question when I see words like certified. First off, that's impressive about being the only NVMe TCP cloud solution certified by VMware. Can you go a little bit more though into the background on that?
Sure. So NVMe over TCP is a high performance protocol for disaggregating storage from compute. NVMe was invented to get the most out of flash as a high performance host control interface. And then several years later, NVMe over fabrics started as a way to extend NVMe over different fabrics in a data center. What Lightbits did when we first started was we invented NVMe over TCP as a way to extend NVMe over TCP IP networks, which is ubiquitous, available everywhere. We came out with the protocol. We standardized it with the help of other industry leaders. It is standard part of NVMe over fabrics. And then we came out with the first solution, production solution for NVMe over TCP, initially for on-prem private cloud deployments. And we worked with industry leaders to build an ecosystem around it. Linux supports it in box. We work with VMware to add NVMe over TCP support in box with ESXi. And now Microsoft announced that they will support it as well. So in the case of VMware, we've been a day zero storage partner for everything NVMe over TCP that VMware does. First, it was on-prem, and now we're the first to be fully certified on Azure with VMware. the benefit of NVMe over TCP from a customer perspective is that it gives you much more parallelism than what iSCSI could support. It still uses Ethernet TCP/IP network infrastructure, which is available everywhere and is available on Azure, but it gives you much higher performance and low latency as compared to older generation like iSCSI type of protocol.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up that last point, because as someone that's followed the evolution of NVMe over fabrics and especially over TCP technology for years, for old storage people like myself, we get a lot of the benefit that gives to latency. But in cloud adoption, it's an excellent reminder that architecture still matters. Just because you're not paying, I guess, directly for the hardware, you're paying indirectly through cloud services, but that architecture still matters. Based on this, though, another question, and this may be for you, Cam. It may also be for Abel. I don't know who the best person is, but if you mentioned, look, Lightbits for Azure VMware solutions. There are obviously other storage options here, and I think when we talk about storage options, a lot of people say, "Hey, look, we got good performance, we got good price." Look, help me understand where are you different, and how are you different?
Sure, that's a great question. So there are other storage options available for AVS, and one that is commonly used is vSAN. vSAN comes with the VMware suite. It's great for sort of mid-range performance and scalability, but it is a HCI approach. So for use cases and for workloads where they have lots of storage, they want to be able to scale their storage independently, and they want to be able to achieve high performance at low consistent latency, that's where we come in. So compared to all the other options that are available for AVS and frankly on Azure in general, we have the most cost-efficient storage for performance-intensive workloads. So if you have a workload that needs low consistent latency and scalable to millions of IOPS, then we've got the best solution. Now, when I say cost efficiency, let me just say a few words about that. First of all, we charge for just the capacity that the customer uses. We don't charge extra for IOPS. We don't charge extra for data services. And we have a range of enterprise data services that we provide, including replication, thin provisioning, compression. This is a highly resilient and multi-AZ resilient storage solution. So enterprise class storage, where we're not charging extra for those features or for the IOPS, the customer gets a storage cluster. They pay for the raw capacity that they're using, and they can use that storage cluster any way they like. And maybe let me just put up another slide that may be helpful here. This one over here. So if you think about what customers get with Lightbits, it's a storage cluster that can be shared across multiple clients. It can be AVS or non-AVS clients that are sharing that storage. And what they're sharing is the available capacity and performance, IOPS, from that cluster. Now, we're talking about deploying this through the Azure Marketplace on Azure infrastructure. So there's lots of automation we have here. If a node within our storage cluster fails, we automatically spin up a new node. We call it auto healing, and there's no service interruption. Because we have thin provision volumes, if we start running out of raw capacity in the storage cluster, we automatically spin up a new node and expand the size of the cluster to be able to support the storage requirements from a capacity point of view. So this is a highly resilient, think of it like a SAN in the cloud that is running on top of standard Azure VMs. And because it's a SAN model, management of this becomes much easier. You're talking about managing volumes in bulk and being able to get efficiencies that way. So just by presenting our solution as a cluster this way, we can get much higher utilization, which also helps drive down the cost while delivering the scalable IOPS to millions of IOPS at very low latency. So one other thing I want to mention, which I think is important, Scott, is that our solution can be consumed in two different ways. If a customer wants to go in through the marketplace, deploy a Lightbits storage cluster and self-manage that, they can do so. But if they would like Lightbits to manage and operate the storage cluster for them, we can also do that, because Microsoft has this mechanism called Managed Application Marketplace Offering, which is basically a managed offering, managed service that we provide to our customers. That means once the storage cluster is deployed, then Lightbits can take over. The resource group is defined by the customer, and we manage and operate that resource group, which is the storage cluster for the customer. That means we do 24/7 health monitoring. We have SLAs. We do all the upgrades of the nodes. We manage all the expansion and healing that is required along the way. And again, it's very important. This is highly resilient storage, including zone redundant storage. This is another way that we differentiate, going back to your earlier question, is that if an entire availability zone fails, then with multi-AZ replication, which is something that Lightbits provides, the Lightbits storage cluster is still available. The data is protected and the service is uninterrupted. So highly resilient, high performance, and only pay for the capacity that you're using. So very cost efficient compared to alternatives.
Cam, I'm so glad you brought up the multi-AZ replication. This is something that, you know, as at least we've seen our research, as well anecdotally, I assume most of our audience have seen this as well, is as organizations increase their maturity of cloud operations, you quickly realize how essential multi-AZ replication or the ability to span multiple availability zones is to ensuring the availability of your application experience. When we think about just cloud adoption as a whole, I think I brought it up at the very beginning about how getting that application experience right, from performance, from security, is very difficult to do. Well, availability is right up there in our challenges of ensuring that. So it's excellent that you guys are integrating that. The other big thing that I love is that managed application option. If we think about, you know, the drivers, what leads people to adopt the cloud in the first place is I have too much stuff to do for the people that I have in my building. So the ability to augment that or augment your own staff or your own capabilities with services from Lightbits just only accelerates that. Because what we think is, okay, cloud adoption, it's easy. It's out of my data center. The cloud is doing it. But there's a lot of complexity there in addition to how you manage storage and how you ensure that your application gets the right performance from your storage. So the fact that Lightbits has an option for that is incredibly valuable. I do though want to better understand the architecture itself, because for me, when I try to think about the public cloud and some of these marketplace solutions, I'd love to get an insight into where your technology starts and stops versus where, you know, the Azure infrastructure stops, so to speak.
Sure. We can. I think Abel would be the right person to answer that question. So
ready to go. Like it.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just pulling a slide that will help to guide, you know, the answer to your question, Scott. But first of all, Lightbits is running an Azure infrastructure on Azure virtual machines. That's what you see in the right side, the purple box. And this is what we were discussing around the managed resource group, you know, where the Lightbits resources are being deployed, and Lightbits has access to these resources because we managed all the storage operations for the customer. Everything is in this side. And it is connected using NVMe over TCP. That means this is the network that you have in Azure by default, to the AVS environment. That's what you see in the left side. In the left side, you have your typical AVS environment, multiple ESXi servers. You provision data stores. With Lightbits, you basically are provisioning BMFS data stores that under the covers are NVMe over TCP volumes managed by Lightbits, what you see again in the right side. Now, how Lightbits is doing all these magic, all these features, how it's Lightbits providing all the performance. You see in the right end that we have multiple virtual machines. Those are the LSB3 or LASB3 virtual machines from Azure that are the storage optimized virtual machines. These virtual machines have local NVMe devices, high performance, very low latency, a lot of throughput. So we pull all these virtual machines together and we create what we call a storage cluster, a pool of storage of NVMe connected with the NVMe over TCP protocol that Cam was referring at the beginning of our discussion to AVS. So from the AVS side, it's very easy. You just continue using data stores as you use today. You provision virtual machines on these data stores, all is happening in the same way. And under the covers, you get all the NVMe over TCP performance up to the NVMe devices of the LSB3, LASB3 virtual machines. And I do want to repeat the feature or capability that we were discussing before around multiple availability zones, because you can see what it means here in this slide. Basically, we are doing what's called synchronous replication of the data across virtual machines that are running in different availability zones. That's what you see here as AC1, AC2, and AC3. So any piece of information that you write from your AVS side will get to Lightbits, and Lightbits will keep it replicated 2 times, 3 times based on your resiliency requirements in different availability zones. So if one of the availability zones goes down, you still have access to your data. And this is a very, very important feature because it's not something that you can easily get from the storage alternatives that we were discussing before. So you can see here that Lightbits is just connected to AVS in a very simple way, NVMe over TCP. You get synchronous replication protection. Lightbits is running in Azure virtual machines, optimized for storage. And you can get maximum performance. And more importantly, that we were also discussing before, you can scale. You can add more and more virtual machines to the right side, to the Lightbits cluster, and you will get more capacity and more performance. And we can scale automatically if you need more capacity, because we provide thin provisioning in the left end. You can create a data store that's much bigger than actually the physical capacity in the right side. But you don't start immediately to consume all the capacity of the data store. You start consuming the capacity of the data store as you go, as you start adding more virtual machines, and the virtual machines start writing data to the data store. So everything is thin provision. When we detect that you are running out of capacity, we will scale the right side, add more virtual machines. So everything is optimized for TCO because you can provision more than you actually are consuming. And when you need the capacity, then you need to start deploying more resources and paying for the resources.
Yeah, Bell, I don't know if I'm cutting you off, but that to me is such an important point, especially when you're leveraging cloud resources, the ability to do thin provisioning, the ability to allow the application to believe that it has more capacity, but you're not actually consuming that in the storage yet. We talked about how valuable that was back when it was more traditional on-premises infrastructure. When you're paying per use, that becomes even far more impactful in terms of cost. Other stuff that I loved on that chart was how clear it was in how Lightbits is delivering both scalability really quickly, but as you talk through that synchronous replication across availability zones, because it comes in as we think about supporting these more business critical low latency applications. Again, experience, well, performance is part of experience, but experience is so important because it's what our business is running on. But I do want, Abel, you mentioned it a couple times, performance. Do you guys have any data on that? Where are you at in terms? I heard of millions of IOPS at one point. I think Cam, you mentioned it. Love to get a sense of what actual performance people might expect.
Sure, that's a great question. So let me pull some graph here. We were talking about a lot of performance, very low latency, million of IOPS, but let's summarize that in a simple figure. You can see here the million of IOPS that you can achieve with Lightbits. That's what you see in the line. For different loads, it's the x-axis, and how we scale the performance. So you push more load, we start with low load, that's 500,000 IOPS, not so low, it's very, very heavy, up to more than 2 million IOPS. That's the line that you see. But what you can see is also here is the read latency and the write latency. Those are the bars. And what is the latency for each specific load. So you can see that even for very high load, that it's under around a million of IOPS, you can get sub-millisecond latency. That's huge. That's not something you will see on the VMware environment, even if you use the highest performance option that's available today. Now, and this also is a pretty big cluster. We are talking here about 16 ESXi servers and ABS with 16 ESXi servers. Lightbits running on 16 of these LASB3 or LSB3 virtual machines. Remember that I mentioned that Lightbits can scale and have the combination of virtual machines. So these are the 16 virtual machines. So this is showing you that you can achieve extremely high throughput with very low read and write latency on ABS. Now, I do want to provide a bit of a reference of, what's the throughput that you can achieve with alternatives. Now, the highest performance alternative today is Visa, which is using local SSDs. As we were discussing before, Visa is a great solution, right, for mid-range workloads, for workloads that do not require high performance, low latency. Go ahead, use Visa. If you get it with ABS and you don't have any constraint with scaling, getting more storage, you deploy it in Visa. But you still may have, or you are kind of keeping on-prem workloads that are high performance, latency sensitive, that those are the workloads that Lightbits would let you run in ABS. So you can deploy Lightbits and get the high throughput, low latency for these specific workloads. And before I get into the numbers, I just want to mention that, VMware also has a lot of tools to migrate between different storage options, what's called storage vMotion. So if you are running a workload in an alternative like vSAN and you see that you need more performance, you can vMotion to Lightbits. You don't need to reconfigure the virtual machine. You don't need to stop the workload. Everything is happening on the fly. Just the storage moves from one option to the other, and you get more performance and even more capacity. So now back to the numbers. What you can see here in purple is the throughput that Lightbits can achieve in gigabytes per second versus the throughput that you can achieve, for example, with vSAN, which vSAN is here, the blue bars. And you see a combination of 70% read, 30% write for different block sizes, starting from 4 kilobytes up to 1 megabyte. You see that Lightbits, as you push more and more throughput by, for example, increasing the block size, scales up to the point that we are limited by the network bandwidth. While with vSAN, you see that the scalability is limited. You reach a bottleneck you reach maximum throughput and you are not consuming all the network capability at 32 kilobytes, which is showing you that for workloads, and again, workloads that require high throughput, low latency, transactional, as we were discussing before, databases, SQL Server, Oracle, MySQL, Postgres, even NoSQL, MongoDB. For all these applications, you can achieve much higher throughput with Lightbits.
So, Abel, quick question on this is, so I love this chart because of how visual it is. You're talking throughput here. Sometimes throughput is augmented because you get that lower latency, right? You can move more data because you're doing it faster and you're better able to utilize the full bandwidth of the network. in addition to that, though, when I see this throughput advantage, is it based off of the advantage you guys have in latency and your ability to use all the pipe, or is it that plus, or is there additional parallelism? Help me understand, maybe another sentence or two.
All of them. So first of all, it's the NVMe over TCP protocol. The NVMe over TCP protocol by design is optimized for NVMe and increased parallelism. So you get much higher parallelism on the way that you can push your data. It also gives you lower latency. So lower latency, when in particular for databases that needs to do a lot of transactions, and the latency of each transaction is actually affecting the TPS, the transactions per second that you can do. It's basically what gives you the ability to push more throughput. So latency and throughput are always coming together. And parallelism, it's what lets you scale. Run more of those, and still be able to get the low latency and high throughput of the system.
Yeah. So not only do you have faster cars, you have more lanes. So that's my takeaway on this. Cam, I wonder about. Oh, sorry, did I cut you off?
Just one thing I wanted to add, which is I think is very important, is the key is to achieve this performance while at the same time we have the HA that we have with multi-zone redundancy, and we have the scalability of being able to scale from anywhere from 3 nodes all the way to, again, many petabytes. So that combination is what sets us apart, and to be able to do that in a cost-efficient way. So again, how do we reduce cost? It's by charging only for capacity, not for IOPS and data services. It's through data reduction. We have compression. We have thin provisioning. Is through the fact that we do auto scaling. So with thin provisioning, you don't have to size your storage cluster for the maximum storage that you're going to need. You only size it for the actual capacity that you're consuming today, and you only pay for the storage that you're consuming today. And then automatically we scale that storage cluster if you run out of capacity. So these are the different mechanisms by which we reduce costs. So I don't want to give the performance is, much higher than anything else that's out there. You saw compared to vSAN, we're talking about, up to 4 times higher throughput. But it's not about selling a Ferrari here. It's about cost efficiency for those performance intensive workloads to allow for these class of mission critical workloads that are having a hard time moving to the cloud, going back to the beginning of our talk, to move to the cloud and meet their requirements in a cost-efficient way.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cam, so you have me convinced. If I'm in the audience, but I have questions about, how do I get access to Lightbits? How do I know if it will work for me where I am? Can you go into that a little bit?
Sure, absolutely. So let me first say that AVS solution, maybe this slide will help. AVS is available globally, and Lightbits for AVS is available wherever AVS is available. So we support regions in the US and North America, in Europe, and other locations in Asia and South America. We are very, very happy with the collaboration we've had with Microsoft over the last couple of years. This is a solution that's integrated with AVS. We want to make it very easy for customers who are using AVS to be able to consume high performance storage with Lightbits for their AVS environment. And as we discussed earlier, they can get that completely as a service from Lightbits, because many move to the cloud in order for not having it, so that they don't have to manage infrastructure as a service. They want to get storage as a service. And that's exactly what we provide for those customers that want to consume it that way. So we're available globally as a high performance storage option for AVS. We also have a program which we're very excited about, which is called the Cloud Quick Start Kit. We basically guarantee that we can, for your performance intensive workloads, we can do better performance than any other storage option at half the cost. And this is a risk-free guarantee. So we sit down with you, we do an assessment of your environment, of your workload, only takes 30 minutes. And then we propose to you what we can actually achieve for you, which would be better performance at less than half the cost. And if we're not able to demonstrate that, prove that to you, then you get a full refund. So Cloud Quick Start Kit is available today. And we're very happy to extend this also to customers who are interested in evaluating Lightbits for AVS. So please contact us, lightbitslabs.com, and we can engage with you and do the quick assessment.
Wow, Cam, that refund is really compelling, really fascinating.
Basically risk-free. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible for customers to see if we can help them or not.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It eliminates it eliminates a ton of the risk involved. I just wanted to focus on that. Hey, I'm paying attention to the time. I know I've been looking at the question queue fill up, but before we get to the Q&A, Cam, can you just give a quick overview of Lightbits, the company?
Sure. Let me just put up one slide, and then we can go through the questions. I see a bunch of questions in the queue. So we've been around since 2016. Lightbits is a mature startup. We've been through 3 rounds of funding, well-funded. You can see our investors on the bottom left include Cisco, Dell, Intel, JP Morgan Chase, and the others that are listed. Many of these are customers or strategic partners who've been working with us for years. If you look at our customer base today, we have tier 2 cloud service providers, we have financial services, e-commerce, AI cloud. So anybody who needs high performance block storage for their cloud, and it could be an internal private cloud, or it could be a public cloud where they're offering a service for other companies. That's what's been our focus from day one. It's high performance cloud data storage, to do that in the most cost efficient way possible. We have our customer facing and sales and support team headquartered in the US, but we have offices around the world, including in Asia and Europe. And our engineering team is based in Israel. So yeah, that's a quick snapshot of the company.
All right. Well, thank you for that, Cam. All right, let's get right into it. Let's get right into these questions. Let me pull up the first one here. So it looks like the first question we have is, can data stores be remounted to another AVS setup for maintenance? I'm not sure if that's for you, Abel, or Cam.
I can take it.
Yeah, go for it.
So one of the advantages of Lightbits compared to the traditional HCI model that's vSAN is that you are decoupling the AVS setup from the storage. That means that, yes, you can mount a data store to any other AVS setup. You can actually deallocate all your AVS and still keep your data protected and saved. And then when you want, you can create a new AVS setup and reuse the data stores that you are keeping in Lightbits. That's a very important feature, because if you, for example, use vSAN, but what will happen is you cannot deallocate the setup, because if you deallocate the setup, all the data is gone. Now, one more important item to understand is that we are talking a lot about AVS, but Lightbits is a generic solution. We are using it for AVS, but you could use the same cluster for virtual machines not running in AVS, for AKS, all the same cluster, and share it, like in a multi-tenant fashion across different environments.
That's a great clarification, Abel, because yes, I mean, Lightbits is a I don't want to say general purpose, because that's not the right word for what you guys do, but it's a storage solution that can serve a variety of different workloads. AVS is just one of them. All right, let's get to the next one. I think, Abel, you might have hit some of this, but can Lightbits be shared across multiple environments?
Correct. So as I said before, we are a storage cluster running on Azure LSP virtual machines. We use NVMe over TCP, so you can connect your AVS environment, can be one or multiple. You can connect your AKS environment. We also have, by the way, a CSI plugin for AKS, all the provisioning configuration of the persistent volumes via persistent volumes client. It's all automated via our CSI plugin. And you can provision volumes to the IaaS infrastructure in Azure, to virtual machines running, for example, Linux, Oracle databases that require typical very low latency, a lot of throughput. You can connect all of them to the same Lightbits cluster.
All right, that makes sense. This next one, backup. Does Lightbits offer any backup capabilities?
Yes, so we have two layers of protecting your data, actually three. The first one, unrelated, MultiAZ. We discussed that we do synchronous replication, so your data is always in multiple X's. The second layer that we provide is snapshots, whether those are on demand or incremental. You can take snapshots of your volumes, in this case, ABS. You can take snapshots of the data stores. If for some reason you see that something bad happened, you can always revert to a previous snapshot, or you can clone from a snapshot, create a new data store, investigate what happened, and recover data that was from the past. And you can also do incremental backup to Azure Blob. So you can specify for a specific volume data store that you want to do incremental backup to Azure Blob. So we take the data out of Lightbits to Azure Blob, so you can later on restore a specific volume from Azure Blob back to the same Lightbits cluster or a different Lightbits cluster or even a cluster in a different region.
It's a great scenario. It really highlights a lot of the flexibility that you get as you think about, how to protect the data across cloud. All right, let's check that out. Oh, this next one I love because it's obviously a storage administrator out there asking this one. What protocol does Lightbits use on AVS?
We've mentioned this many times. NVMe over TCP. It's fastest, modern, highest performance, lower latency protocol available today on top of standard TCP/IP networks. So we just run on top of this protocol, whether it's ABS or any other of the other use cases that we mentioned before.
It's just trust it. It's in the cloud. But no, in all seriousness, I mean that's part of the secret sauce that you guys do, which is about how you drive that performance at lower cost. All right, I think we have.
And just Scott to mention one item specifically for ABS, we deployed BMFS data stores, and the VMFS data stores use the NVMe over TCP.
Okay.
Yeah, Scott, also keep in mind that our approach at Lightbits was to standardize NVMe over TCP so that we don't need any Lightbits proprietary software on the clients. Our solution is just the external storage. And on the client side, we're talking about AVS as is. There's nothing required on the AVS side to be able to support NVMe over TCP because it's already available in box from VMware, thanks to the collaboration we've had with VMware for several years. So this is very easy to deploy in terms of going to the marketplace, creating a storage cluster, and you're done. And you don't have to make any changes on your AVS side. Or if you're using some other environment on the client side, it's already supported in box. So the protocol is really under the hood and just gives you very high performance and low latency.
Yeah, excellent clarification there, Cam. It's something that, I followed you guys for a little bit, so I take it for granted a little bit, but that ability to automatically connect is so valuable. All right, I think we got one last question as we. And then we can wrap up here. All right. We're looking to move our VMware environment to the cloud to reduce costs. How does Lightbits pricing compare to other options? This is all you. So turn over to you.
Yeah. So I would encourage anybody who's interested to get in touch with us, and we can do a TCO analysis specifically for your workload. And depending on what you're comparing to, we'll show you, where we can help you reduce the cost. If it's if the customer is looking for just the cheapest cost per gigabyte, and they don't have high performance requirements, that's probably not a good fit for us. But if you have performance intensive workloads and you're comparing us, for example, to vSAN, then we are basically guaranteeing that we'll cut your costs in half for performance intensive workloads. And that's because of the way we're able to maximize the utilization of the flash and be able to scale your storage independently, and do that with data reduction capabilities that we have. We've done TCO analysis for many other customers, and we'd be happy to do that for you as well.
Yeah, thanks, Cam. I don't think we have any more questions. Cam, Abel, thank you guys so much for your time. This was incredibly insightful. I learned a ton.
Thank you, Scott. This was fun.
Thank you, Scott, and all the audience for joining us today.
Exactly. And then, I'll close this out real quick. Kind of, my thoughts is, as an analyst that covers this space, I can tell you one of the biggest ways in which organizations get themselves into trouble leveraging the public cloud is when it comes to inertia. It comes to just selecting the default and not doing some of the key analysis of looking at, okay, what are all the options available to me? Lightbits has made it incredibly easy to and dramatically reduce the risk of checking out what they can offer with that rebate option that Cam walked us through. Highly recommend, as you think about your cloud migration projects, especially with VMware, think about the performance needs, do the analysis up front to see what your demands are, and then also check out what else is available rather than just kind of accepting the default option. So that's kind of a quick summary based on what I see in my conversations with organizations as well as within our research. And with that, definitely check out everything Lightbits has to offer. And again, thank you for your time and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.